A legume exists that matches soybean gram for gram in protein, delivers more than double the dietary fiber, fixes its own nitrogen from the air, unlocks phosphorus trapped in dead soil, requires no heat processing before feeding to livestock, and grows in sand. Romans considered it sacred enough to bury with their honored dead. Southern cotton farmers once grew it across 2.5 million acres to restore soil that cotton had stripped bare. Then the 1950s arrived, and Washington wrote export legislation that built a global commodity highway, and only one crop was invited to drive on it. Frank Miller here with Heritage Garden Wisdom, and the legume I'm showing you today was not banned, not proven inferior, not replaced by something better. It was defunded. There is a precise difference, and that difference explains why you have never heard its name. The American Soybean Association was founded in 1920. For over a century, it built market infrastructure, lobbied for favorable trade policy, and positioned soy as the default plant protein in American agriculture and exports. No equivalent institution existed for lupin, not in 1920, not in 1954, not today. Then, in July 1954, President Eisenhower signed Public Law 480, the Agricultural Trade Development and Assistance Act, building a global export system for American farm products. Soybeans were written into that system by name. Lupin was not written in. In 1956, the Agricultural Act followed, tying commodity price supports explicitly to soybeans. Price floors, export subsidies, institutional support at every level, county extension offices to international trade negotiations. Lupin received none of this architecture. When you measure a crop that received a century of breeding investment, a commodity futures market, and a global supply chain against a crop that received a bag of seed and no funding, and then call the result a fair comparison, you are not measuring agriculture. You are measuring politics. Lupinus albus, white lupin. The botanical name is Lupinus albus. Ancient farmers in the Mediterranean basin had been cultivating it since at least 400 BC. The Romans revered it practically and ritually. Colunula, the first-century agricultural authority, wrote in De Re Rustica that when manure is lacking, sow lupins as a substitute. Pliny referenced it, Varro documented it, and archaeobotanist Laurent Bouby and Philippe Marinval, publishing in the Journal of Archaeological Science in 2004, identified white lupin seeds deliberately placed inside a Roman cremation burial at Lusat in the Auvergne region, placed not as waste but as a chosen offering, burned with the dead. A plant revered enough to accompany the dead and practical enough to replace manure on a working farm. Protein content of lupins is approximately 34 to 44% on a dry weight basis, almost equivalent to soybean and significantly higher than lentils, peas, chickpeas, and fava beans. USDA Food Data Central records white lupin seed protein at 36.2 grams per 100 grams. Soybeans clock in at 36.5 grams per 100 grams. The difference is 0.3 of a gram, a rounding error. The plant that was erased from American agriculture contains effectively identical protein density to the crop chosen to replace it. But fiber is where the comparison collapses entirely. Lupin beans are higher in fiber than soybeans, delivering 19 grams of dietary fiber per 100 grams against soybeans' 9.3 grams, more than double. In a food system where the average American consumes barely half the recommended daily fiber intake, that gap is not academic. It is a public health variable hiding in a plant no one promoted. Lupin is lower in anti-nutritional factors than soybeans. Lupin seeds or meal would not need to be heat-treated since trypsin inhibitors and hemagglutinin are practically absent. Soybeans must be heat-processed before they can safely be fed to livestock, an extra step, an added cost, and engineered workaround for a biological limitation that white lupin simply does not have. The root system of white lupin is not a single benefit. It is a three-part restoration system. Through symbiosis with Rhizobium lupini, the plant fixes atmospheric nitrogen, delivering 140 to 175 pounds of nitrogen per acre back into the soil without a bag of synthetic fertilizer. Its deep taproot, penetrating over 2 feet into compacted ground, physically restructures hardpan soils that shallow-rooted cotton had cemented across the American South for generations. And it produces specialized cluster roots that scavenge phosphorus from forms so chemically locked in depleted soil that other crops cannot access them. Every single efficiency lupin provides represents a revenue stream that someone else loses. No fertilizer sales, no processing dependency, no repeat input purchases. Lupin crops are climate tolerant and have great potential to recover poor soils, which is precisely why they generate no commercial advocacy. At peak, over 2.5 million acres of lupins were grown as green manure for cotton across the southeastern United States, the Lupin Belt, an area rivaling the total farmland of some American states, dedicated not to a cash crop but to the plant that made cash cropping possible. Then Public Law 480 was signed, and the Lupin Belt quietly disappeared. Europe has become heavily dependent on soybean imports for 70% of its plant protein requirements. White lupin, yellow lupin, and narrow-leafed lupin are native European legumes that represent a significant alternative to soybean. Their seed protein content is high, up to 44%, and they contribute to the sustainability of cropping systems. From the year 2000 to 2020, there was high growth in lupin production in Europe, from 88,000 tons per year to nearly 458,000 tons per year. The LUCA project in the UK, an integrated program for the development of lupins as a sustainable protein source for British agriculture, states its purpose in language that says everything: to reduce dependence on imported soy. After 70 decades of soy dominance, the institutions doing the replacing are naming exactly what they are replacing. Despite growing interest, few commercially available products feature lupin as a primary ingredient yet. Those that do position it as a high-protein, sustainable alternative to soy or wheat. In Germany, Pervegan's Algerts brand launched a full lupin-based product range using organically grown lupins from the Palatinate region. In the United States, brand Brahmi produces high-protein pasta made with lupin and markets whole lupin beans as a direct protein alternative. U.S. plant-based nutrition company Mikuna has launched Chocho, a lupin-derived protein powder that the company claims outsells pea and soy protein in regional retail stores. White lupin grows in USDA zones 5 through 9. It tolerates frost down to -5 degrees Celsius during establishment, making it an early-season crop that can be sown in March. It thrives in acidic, low-phosphorus soils where other legumes struggle. Inoculation with Rhizobium lupini allows roots to form nitrogen-fixing nodules, and nitrogen fertilization is not necessary. Experiments have shown that inoculation can lead to a doubling or tripling of yield. The plant grows to roughly 4 feet tall with compound leaves, upright flower spikes, and pale seeds in clustered pods. Those pale, flattened seeds are the key visual distinction from ornamental lupin varieties, which bear small, dark seeds and must never be eaten. 3 safety points that are not optional. First, only consume seeds from confirmed sweet, low-alkaloid cultivars. Bitter or ornamental lupins contain quinolizidine alkaloids that are genuinely toxic. The Australian food safety threshold is 0.02% alkaloid content. Second, the EU lists lupin among regulated allergens under Regulation 1169/2011. Cross-reactivity with peanut allergy is documented. If you have a peanut allergy, exercise extreme caution. Third, source only verified food-grade Lupinus albus from reputable suppliers. Sweet lupin flour, protein isolate, and whole seeds are available through specialty food retailers and increasingly online. They did not ban white lupin. They did not need to. They built a world where commodity architecture, export legislation, and a century of institutional funding flowed to one crop and left this one with nothing. The shift towards plant protein-rich diets and the awareness of the environmental impact of soybean cultivation is now driving European countries to diversify local production of protein crops. The Lupin belt is not gone. It is waiting. Like this video, subscribe to Heritage Garden Wisdom, share this with someone who grows food, and comment below. Had you heard of White Lupin before Frank showed you this? Every comment is proof that this knowledge is spreading.